Welcome to the third module of project management. Now we're going to be looking at project scope management. Project scope management. What is project scope? Your scope must be defined before you can embark on a project. It will help you decide a whole lot of factors that would be responsible for accomplishing the project goal. Now, let me give you an example. A young man was supposed to go for an interview for 9 a.m. and from his house where he lived to where the interview be taking place was just like 30 minutes away from his house. But as at 8:30 a.m. in the morning, he was set, everything was fine, and he wanted to jet out for the interview, but he couldn't find his resume. He began to look for the resume and wonder where the hell the resume had gone to. But suddenly he looked under his bed. He got the resume under his bed. But while he saw his CV, the hard copy of his CV, he also saw some other materials, like some things he had been looking for the past 3 months. A golden wristwatch. He suspected everybody, especially close friends, who have taken the wristwatch. Then from there, he saw a particular dollar bill that he has been searching for who knows how long. Everything was stored under the bed. Before he could take the golden wristwatch, before he could take his dollar bill, that was not more than $1. The golden wristwatch was a fake kind of golden wristwatch, everything amounted to not more than 10,000 naira, in Nigerian currency. By the time he was done with that, his time had clocked from 8:30, he was already clocking 9:30. So he had spent 1 hour searching for not just his CV, but also other things that he felt were important. By the time he got to the interview venue, he had already been disqualified from the job. Now, he was told to appear by 9, and if he doesn't come by 9, he will not get the job. Well, he came by 9:30. What was responsible for that particular project failure? It was simply because he couldn't manage his scope effectively. Fine, he needed to look for the resume. He would have just stuck only to the resume search. And once he saw the resume, then he could, move out of the house, get to the interview venue, and see what they can do to beat time. But he couldn't stay within the scope, and he went out of scope. His scope was his CV. The wristwatch was not his scope. The dollar bill was not his scope. Whatever he found under the bed was not his scope. Every of those things would have waited until he returned back. So scope management is very important to successful project delivery. If you go out of scope, you would most likely go out of successful accomplishment of your project goal. So let's quickly look at it right now. What is project scope by definition? It means the process, look at it here, by which, all projects must include all the work required, and the only work required to complete your project successfully. Underline the word only. Look at it here. Only is very key. You can't be a jack of all trades and master of none. For every period in your project, you must focus on a particular part of the project, ensure it is completed, then you can move on to the next phase. Do you understand that? Okay, let's quickly look at the next one. There are 4 processes, or 5 as it were, to help you manage project scope. 1, initiation. 2, scope planning. Are you seeing it now? 3, scope definition. 4, scope verification. So 1, you must initiate your scope officially. 2, you must plan your scope. 3, you must define. The word definition means break down your scope. 4, you must verify. In other words, you must control the scope. Then finally, you must ensure you do scope change control in case if the scope is about to move out of original plan. Let's quickly look at this now. Initiation. What is initiation? Official startup. Every project must be started up officially. You cannot embark on a project without going through initiation. I'll give you a story. A young lady got a job on Monday morning, lost the same job on Monday morning. Why? She came to the office, got an information from the boss, and the boss told her, please arrange my office, and I'm coming in by 9 a.m. Make sure this is done before I come in. She opened the boss's office, who was incidentally or coincidentally a professor, you know, and he was embarking on a research with so many books on his table, about 50 of them. Those books were opened at various pages. It was easy for him to locate whatever he was looking for. Of course, the page dividers were there. It was very visible even to the blind man. But when she came in, she was too zealous and passionate because she got a new job, good paying job. And she went ahead and took all the books on the boss's table and packed all of them and, you know, arranged them like in a pyramidal form. And it was lovely. I mean, if you look at the arrangement, it was interesting. But that was not the expectation of her boss. That was not the expectation of the stakeholder. She went out of scope. She didn't initiate the project before she embarked upon it. The best you could have done is to find out, sir, there are books on your table. I noticed that they are open at various pages. Would you mind if I do A, B, C, D? Or what would you have me to do? She need to get the scope of that particular job. Does it include the books on the table? Or is it just about cleaning up the surfaces and maybe trashing whatever that needs to be trashed? She couldn't understand the scope of put my office in order. So don't do projects without understanding the scope. It will help you stay within the scope. Okay, so that's initiation. How do you initiate? 3 things. You must know your input, you must have your tools, then you must understand the results you are supposed to produce. First, let's go to the results. It will give you a lot of understanding. Look at the results of initiation. Anytime projects are initiated, the first thing you see is that the project charter is given. I'll explain this later, but just follow me. Number 2, during initiation, the project manager is identified and assigned. These are the reasons you need to initiate, because it is during initiation that authorization is delivered. You don't get authorized, you don't get a mandate, you don't get a charter until there is an official launching of a project. You can't just come and start acting as a president of whatever organization without a formal commissioning or election and certification that you have been elected to run as a president of that organization or institution. Do you understand that? Then during initiation, you will see constraints and assumptions. So in order to get these 3 critical results before a project scope can be embarked upon, we need to go back to the input. These are things you must have. Do you understand the flow now? So input number 1, product description. What are we producing? You want to start a project. You got a job with United Nations, and you have made the country supervisor of Zimbabwe, and the first is to reduce the child deaths or the maternity deaths, in that country from 10% to 4%. If you don't understand the goal and the product and the output expected, you can't start it. So you need to understand, and it must be clearly described. Number 2, you must understand strategic plan. In other words, what is strategic plan? A strategic plan is a plan that enables the accomplishment of the project goal. The word strategic talks about the big picture, how you can be able to fit into what the organization is doing at that time. Imagine you are starting a project to produce bottled water, all right? And everybody's working towards designing, branding, developing competitive advantage, to beat the bottled waters in the market. And suddenly your operations officer or maybe the human resource manager in the office is busy researching on how to design an aircraft that does not have a wing. What does the aircraft design have to do with the water production? It has nothing to do with the strategic plan. So before you start any project, ensure that everything that is going around you at that material point in time is contributing to the big picture of that particular project. We call it strategic thinking. Do you understand that? Number 3 is project selection criteria. You need to be ready to select. You have to. You cannot jump into every and any project that comes across to you, especially if you are, faced with options or multiple possibilities. You have to find a way to juggle. Do I start with A or start with B or go for E or go for D? You need to select. We're going to talk about selection criteria. Number 4, you must know historical information before you start any project. The best source of information in every project is what? Historical information. Don't be in a hurry to jumpstart any project. Find out what has been done in history. find out the archives, and you can move forward into the new project. Let's go to the tools. How to initiate. 1, select. Make a selection. Let me be a little I give you a little funny example, right? Imagine a lady you just done from service with Nigerian, and somehow you got a job and you want to get married, and before you is over 7 young men who are jostling and juggling and battling around you to get your attention and to win your heart. You understand that? Now, you are faced with 7 options and you want to initiate the marriage project. You cannot jump into anyone. You need to make a selection. You can't be in love with 2 or 3. Then you need the person needs psychiatric attention. Do you understand that? You need to make a selection, and selections are critical to initiation. So how do you select? I'll give you 3 ways to make a fact-based selection when you are faced with multiple options, right? Number 1, the first thing to do is look at the future value. The future value of every project is critical to the present decision whether to start or not to start. So future value is equal to present value multiplied by the rate raised to the power of the number of years. I'll take it again. It's here. You can look at it. FV is equal to PV bracket 1 plus R raised to the power of N, where your FV is the future value, your PV is the present value, your R is the interest rate, and the N is the number of years. You can do a little calculation with this on your own. You want to know the future value of your 10,000 naira today. You want to invest it in a mutual fund or a commercial paper or a fixed deposit, or you want to buy stocks or shares, and the interest rate is 10% per annum. All right? And you're going to leave it there for the next 5 years. You can do the mathematics. So what's the future value of 10K today? 10K is equal to 10K bracket 1 plus 10 over 100, which is 10%, bracket closes, raised to the power 5. So when you do the mathematics, you will see 10,000 multiplied by 0.1 raised to the power of 5. Now use your calculator to do it. You will see that the value of 10,000 in the future, if the interest rate will remain constant, will be bigger than the 10,000 of today. We call it the time value for money. So check the future value of your project, then you can make a present day initiation decision. Number 2, consider the benefit cost ratio, BCR. Benefit must outweigh cost, pure ED. If your benefit is more than the cost, then you can take the decision as ceteris paribus, all things being equal. Number 3, consider your IRR, or what we call ROI, return on investment. You know what that means? At what point, to what extent are you going to have a break even in the business or in the project? Or what is the rate at which your investment will return back to you? If the rate of return is pretty discouraging, what are you doing in the project? I mean, it's not a charity. Every project is to produce a product for a client has to pay for value. Do you understand that? So look at the rate of return on investment. If an investment will return the initial capital in 10 years, before 10 years time, the value of your money will be depreciated by inflation and it will worth next to nothing. So think about that. Now let's look at the results. Of course, I've told you about that before. You have the project charter, you have the manager, the constraint and assumption. But let me talk about charter. Are you there? Look at number 1. What's a charter? A charter is the formal authorization given to a project manager to start. Every project must be chartered, or every project manager must be chartered before he can charter a project. You cannot charter the cost of a project until you have a charter. I must authorize you. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. This beautiful project of establishing a second stadium in Abuja is going to be handled by Mr. Minu and also assisted by Mrs. Chikere. I mean, that's the project charter. Announced, then papers documented, emails delivered to your email box, and you are good to go, right? So you must have that. Let's quickly look at this. The second is scope planning. When you are done with initiation, plan your scope. The job has been given to you. You have been authorized to start the project. All right? Your boss called you from the fourth floor and said, please, clients are coming from Australia. Get them a training venue for 50 people and let it be ready by 4 p.m. Find out the design they want and make sure their buffet is ready. Once you have been given the charter, what do? You go back to your drawing board, sit on your table and begin to create a scope plan. How do I go from A to B? What should I avoid? What should I not avoid? Things like that. Who works with me? How do I mitigate risk and mitigate constraints? You will have to put these things on paper before you can start implementation. All right? So what are the inputs? The inputs to scope planning means, number one, know your product. All right? Know your product. KYC. Know your customer. KYP. Know your product. You must have the description. Number two, hold your charter. Somebody can ask you why. Well, I was assigned by the manager to carry out this project. Boom, and you are there. Make sure you have your charter. Three, know your constraints and assumptions. I've talked about it before. So you must know the constraints while you are planning so that you don't plan constraints into your scope. You must know constraints until they are no longer constraints. You can leave them off your constraint point. Until then, they remain constraints and assumptions. So you don't apply them, but you work around them, all right? Let's look at the tools for scope planning. How do you plan your scope? How do you know the job to be done and the only work to be done? Very simple. Let's look at it now. Number one, product analysis. Break down your product. What are we producing? We are producing an event venue with 50 seats in a U form, all right, that has white and purple table cover, and they have individual wines on their table with glasses. That's the scope analysis, already documented by your stakeholders. As simple as that. When you break down the product, you will know the process that will help you actualize the product. You got that now. Number two, make sure you know the benefit cost analysis. You know why? Every process will require a specific cost. You need to find out which of these processes can give you the best result at the least cost. Okay, let me give you an example. You're supposed to move from, let's say, from LA roundabout, to LA Fifth Avenue, if you live in LA in the US, all right? Now, from LA roundabout to LA Fifth Avenue is just like 10 minutes drive. But if you don't know the right route, you may go through a longer route and appear in 20 minutes. It doesn't make sense, right? You will spend more to achieve the same result. So you need to look at BCR, analyze the benefit cost ratio of all the processes and choose the one with the biggest or highest benefit and the least cost. Of course, if you do brainstorming, you will know. Number three, you need to look at what they call alternative identification. Use brainstorming. Use research methodology. You have not done something before. You can do it. How do you get to do what you haven't done before? Find out who have done such things before. There's nothing you want to do others haven't done, except it's something that's never existed before, and there's nothing new under heaven. So why not use brainstorming methodology to find out possible ways to get the work done? You can form a group. You can consult stakeholders. You can also check expert judgment. That's number four. Experts can give you the scope. Example, somebody just called you and said, please, could you just, you study project management, and I see your certificate is fantastic. Can you supervise a 4-bedroom duplex for me, about 20 units? Can you do that? I said, wow, sir, I have never supervised a building since I was born. Come on. You don't need to say that. You need an expert. He may ask you, please, what do I need to even start the building? What are the basic things I should have? You don't need to break your head. Get an expert judgment. Look for a man whose job has been in the area of building construction for the past 35 years of his life. He's an expert. He has all the track record. Bring him in. Work as a team. You manage a project as a project manager. Then he supervises the critical technical elements of the project. Do you understand that? So that is very key in scope planning. So don't give out the job. Don't refuse it because you don't have the expert judgment in that area. You can always consult experts, okay? Number three is your output. Your output of scope plan. Anytime you plan for your scope, you get a scope statement. It's as simple as that. What's a scope statement? A scope statement is just a document, right? Look at it here. That will show the work to be done and the only work required to be done. It is now used in line with the project plan to execute your project and to make future decisions about your project. Do you understand that? Then, of course, you know what the supporting document or supporting detail, evidence for decisions you made in your plan. Let's go to the third process. Don't forget, we are looking at how to manage a scope Why must you manage the scope? Scope can change. And if scope changes, project can go bad. So you must ensure the scope is within the scope, so that you can drive forward and get to your expected deadline. That is the essence of managing scope. You cannot do a project and be scopeless or be scope free. Do you understand? You must manage the scope. Less the scope will make you a scope. Oh, sorry about that. All right. Okay, so let's look at scope definition, right? How do you define a scope? What's definition? To define means to break down. What is money? Money is any generally accepted, medium of exchange, value of exchange. That's money. What are you doing? You are breaking down. A young man was asked in school some years ago. He was asked by his teacher to say, what is the mention one characteristics of money, and the boy said homogeneity. Then I told him, all right, good, you got it. Could you define the word homogeneity? The guy says, sir, oh, that's a simple question. I mean, you should have asked me something harder than that. And the teacher said, no problem, just give us the simplicity of the simple question. And the guy said, the definition of homogeneity is that money is homogeneous. What? You know what the guy just did? He didn't define nothing. He only switched the language, the words. So in definition, you break down. So scope definition means breaking down your scope to what? Smaller, manageable sizes. Because sometimes your job can be huge. You may look at the work and say, wow, man, I'm going to do 18 things to get there. This is crazy. But listen, nothing is crazy when it is broken down to smaller sizes. You can't get angry and hungry, or hungry and angry, that you have to swallow the food without chewing. It's not possible. No matter how hungry and angry you are, you still need to masticate your food. You need to break it down for your system to be able to continue the breakdown in your, you know what I mean, right? Okay, so you need to break down your scope. How do you break it down? Let's go to the input. Now, hold your scope statement. Statement of work to be done. The only work to be done. Please know it. These things are not difficult at all. Just put them at the back of your mind, because anyone you miss, the project can fail. You're working with a client, and the client says, please give me a breakdown of my job. Let me know what I'm supposed to do for me to accomplish my project goal. And suddenly you start using your brain. You forgot the scope statement. You forgot the agreement. You forgot the document that was signed, the contract. You will go out of communication. Your information will be false at a point. So you need scope statement before you can break down your job. Number two, know your constraints and assumptions so that you don't break it. The only thing you keep carrying over in the school of project management is constraints and what? Assumptions. The second carryover element that will never make you a failure in life is historical information. You will keep carrying these two things until they are no longer in existence. The essence of carrying the constraints and assumptions in most of the processes is to ensure you don't mistakenly fix the constraint in the project. Because once a constraint is fixed and you implemented it, that project will come to an abrupt suspension. Then everybody will like, oh, we are stuck. What do we do? There's a mistake here. How do we do this? Then start calling consultants. Please, somebody come and help me. I'm stuck somewhere. Because you added a constraint that you didn't crack before bringing it in. That's why sometimes some jobs are not brought in. They are kept in the lab, within some think tank group. They look at it, break it down, find out how it can work. Then they cannot bring it into the main project. Does it make sense? So you must be careful with these two elements. They are not so good if they don't get properly taken care of. Okay? So number three, historical information. I've talked about that. How do you break down your scope? What are the tools and techniques? Number one, work breakdown structure templates. Use a template. This is interesting. Any work you want to do in your office, anywhere in the world, and you haven't done it before, or you have done same work before, the easiest way to know what ought to be done within the framework of that job is to use a template. What are templates? Templates are formats, previously used formats, successfully implemented formats that can give you a direction on how to implement your current project. That's how it works. For example, let me go to football a little. You understand that in quote and unquote, please don't quote me right now, okay? It's just an example, it's just an illustration. You have understood as a coach you just came into Chelsea, or you just came into Arsenal, right? And by historical information, you learned and you have known that Chelsea have always had it very rough with Barcelona. Anytime they play together, it is usually a showdown of two titans, and eventually Chelsea has always had the upper hand. If they've met 10 times, Chelsea has won 6, they drew 2, and Barcelona won 2. What do? Go and look for the template of those matches. You take those templates, modify them, implement those strategic strong points, avoid the loopholes that make Barcelona to get a goal behind the net of Chelsea, and you can produce a better result. That is how it works. So you need a work breakdown structure template, WBS. Say with me, WBS. This WBS is the center of your job. If you understand it, you'll be a fantastic producer of results, whatever you do. It's very important. If you don't have a template, use decomposition. Look at number 2. To decompose means use your brain. Come on, use your knowledge, use your research skill, use your stakeholders analysis, use your expert judgment. Get to know what ought to be done. Assuming there's no template, wherever, someone can help you, researchers can help you, you can think out the possibilities, you can pilot it, and if it works, you can now take it to the main place for production. All right, let's look at the results. Anytime you break down your job, you have one fantastic result. It's called WBS. If you look at your manual, I don't know if you have it with you there. I would like to just go to your manual if you have it. But if you don't have it, please just take note. Take note of this. It will help to drive this point. We don't usually use the manual to teach. It's just a reference material because we have a whole lot of experiences beyond what is right here in the paper. But let's look at page 22 of the manual. Do you see where they have WBS, right? Now, you see the diagram there, 22. There's this project. Are you with me there? Good. Do you see that there's a project to be handled? This project has 4 phases. The first phase is the requirements. Second phase is to know the design. The third phase is to have what we call the construction. The third phase the last phase is to do testing. So once you know requirements, know the design, construct it, then you test it. But in order for you to know the requirements, there are 3 actions or tasks that must be done. Activity A, activity B, activity C. What does this mean? In order to know the requirements, do A, B, C. Requirements is ready. In order to make a bar, forgive me, do boil your water, get your bowl, pour the boiled water into the bowl, bring in the granulated gari, the grains or the whatever you call it. You put it there. When it gets to a level, you allow it to arrange itself. Then you turn it. Your gari is ready. It's not rocket science. The same way you make gari by knowing the 3 things to do, you can do anything by knowing the 4 things that ought to be done. Kyoidi, all through apparel, all over the world. So the same thing. So that is called a WBS, work breakdown structure. If you have a WBS, you are done with your job. All you need to do is to give instructions in each phases or apply each of these phases, and you get your job completely done till finishing point. Does it make sense? That is very important. Please take note of WBS. Don't do any job without understanding the work breakdown structure. You don't know it, get an expert. Somebody knows it. You have the WBS, manage the phases using your project management skill set, and you can be good to go. All right? Let's quickly look at the last part of it. We'll look at scope verification. You want to verify your scope. How do you verify it? The job is done. You don't just submit the job to your client. You need to look at the job being done before you can submit the job to your stakeholders. So what's verification? Assessing the job done, evaluating, checking, monitoring, performing some M&E on that particular job before you send it to the final consumer. So verification, write this one down, must be done after every phase. This is an exam question. I just gave you one answer to an exam question, right? Every scope must be verified phase by phase. Don't verify your scope at the end. Don't do it, because projects are like layers, layer upon layer. You are done with foundation, allow it to cake, give it 28 days or 30 days to cake, move it to the next phase, move it to the next. For each phase, you must evaluate and verify. All right, that is how it is done globally. So input to verification, work results, check what has been done. 2, product documentation. Is there any diagram or any design that shows what the result ought to look like? Then you can do a benchmarking. You compare between what was done and what ought to be done. So let's look at the tools and techniques. How do you verify? You need to inspect. You can't be in the office to verify what ought to be physically verified. You need to be physically present to physically inspect what ought to be inspected. All right? So inspection is important. It can be a walkthrough inspection. It can be a benchmark. However, you must make sure that the results are in line with the original plan and scope or expected design of the stakeholders or the consumer or the client or the customer. Output, results of scope verification. 1 is formal acceptance. Anytime verification is done, acceptance is not going to be difficult. So don't forget, acceptance must be done officially. You must sign documents, give out receipts, invoices collected, because at that point in time, project is about to go to postmortem. So you must ensure that your project is formally accepted. All right, let's look at project time management. Because for this particular video, we need to get these two modules together so that it will help us to manage our schedule. Are you ready? Good. When I'm done, I'll give you an assignment for both modules. Okay, let's look at time management. Beautiful. Okay, now project time management is very important. You know why? You've done a good job so far. You are doing a good job so far. You've managed your project all together coordinatedly. You have a plan for everything, and you also understood your scope. You've broken down the scope. You have your metrics, your measurement to ensure that it does not go out of scope. You know how to verify. You know how to, in fact, you have done a good scope planning, scope execution, and scope verification. The next thing is time management, because all jobs are done within a time frame. Don't forget that projects have deadlines. This time management is critical to project success, because as a manager, as someone who works in the project, even as a project team member, you must know how to manage the assignments or the tasks given to you within your area of responsibility, and be able to meet a particular deadline, bringing the results before the expiration of that time. So we're going to learn time management, and it will make you a fantastic, professional in your field. Now let's quickly look at it now. What is time management? Project time management means making sure that your project is completed within the deadline. Meeting deadline is important. No client wants to come to a project that has been marked out for 2 weeks and the project is taking 2 months. Man, nobody will be happy about it, except if it's as a result of natural factors like force majeure, like disasters, like earthquakes, and it's not a direct responsibility of the project team, the project sponsor, or the project manager and the stakeholders. Everybody can understand that. But ceteris paribus, everything being equal, the stakeholders want project completed within time. I give you a very funny example. You went to eat, quite very hungry, dashed into the restaurant. You made an order. I want Indomie plus egg plus plantain, and I'm going to pay you 1,500 naira or $10 for it. And you ask them, how long will it take? They just laugh and say, madam, Oga, just wait now. This is going to take just 4 minutes, and we're out. 4 minutes became 20 minutes. 20 became 40 minutes. And if you are too patient, by now your patience should have been exhausted. If it's someone like me, when I get to 8 minutes, they will see my ghost behind. And I'm living there with a bitter experience. Because it's better for you to tell me 1 hour. And I'm like, what? What do you mean by 1 hour? And you bring it in 30 minutes. Now for you to tell me 4 minutes and you appear in 40 minutes, that is high level of unprofessionalism and irresponsibility, right? So please manage time effectively, do the best you can, and of course, what you have done will do the best they can for you, okay? Now let's look at the processes. How do you manage time? 1, know your activities. That's number one. Activity definition. Activity definition. Now, every project must have activities to be embarked upon in order to complete the job. Are you seeing the connectivity of this course? You can't jump on the air and say, I know, I can do. You must have gone through training. These things are connected. You want to be a time manager, but you don't understand the input. You don't know the activities. You will, in fact, can't manage it. It's just, all right. So what you need to do is know the activities. What are we going to do from start to finish? That's why you must sit down to calculate scope. You see where we came from? You must calculate work breakdown, because each of the scope must be assigned time. Then you use some skills to manage each of the scope, just like I'm doing right now, because we need to get to somewhere within a particular time limit. Okay, now look at this. In your scope definition, you want to break down the scope. Activity definition, you also want to break down the activity. They look alike or they sound alike, but let's go into it right now. Before you break down your activities, number one, have your WBS. Did you see how we are going? We are like producing results from one point to the next point. Your WBS is the breakdown of your work into deliverables. I'll take it again. WBS is what? Breaking down of your activities, the jobs you will do, into deliverables. What are deliverables? Tangible results from each phase of your project. So the phase by phase results are called what? Deliverables. What gives you the deliverables? WBS. Oh my God. All right, you get it? So have your WBS. 2, get your scope statement. Work to be done and the only work required to be done. How do you break down your activities? Look at it. 1, use decomposition. We'll talk about that before. You don't have a template, which is number 2. Decompose. The same tool that we use in scope definition. You remember? The same thing. So I won't talk much about it. Now let's go to the next one. Let's look at activity definition output. When you define your activities, you will come up with activity list. That's number 1. Did you see it here? Activity list. What's activity list? It's like a to-do list. The list of work to be done in order to accomplish the project. We want to arrange the hall for 50 guests. What are we going to do to arrange it? Number 1, have a meeting with the stakeholders. Get the design they want. Number 2, call the guys in charge of the hall to get the hall open and put on the lights. Number 3, arrangement of the hall. You break it down. Number 4, ensuring that the atmosphere is in sync with what kind of aroma they are expecting. All of this is already listed. We call it activity list. So if you have your list, the next thing to do, you will update your WBS. Look at number 3 here. Update what? WBS. You know why? As you are breaking the WBS, because of progressive elaboration, remember in the first module, there are certain things you will see going further in your job that you never saw at the beginning. So once you keep seeing new elements popping out of the work you are doing, you need to go back to your WBS and update the WBS. Formerly, your WBS was just 3 processes and you are good to go. But as we are working, you discover the 4th one. You saw a 5th one. What do? You go back to update it, because in the future, your WBS will be a historical information, a reference point to future projects. These things are connected. That's why those who keep records, quality records, updated records, are usually very progressive in whatever they do, because they will always start from a higher pedestal and not go back to where they were when they started at the beginning of their career. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you must ensure your WBS is updated. Number 2, the second process for time management is activity sequencing. Sequencing. You know the list. You have 7 things to do to finish your building. You have 8 things to do to finish the souvenir that you are going to submit to your organization, who have already paid $15 million for the souvenir. You have 15 things to do for the building to be ready. within 15 months, you need to sequence them. You cannot just start with number 1 because it's in the first of the list. No, you need to do what they call sequencing. Right? What is activity sequencing? It's a process of arranging your job in logical order. First in, first out. Last in, last out. Of course, remember FIFO, LIFO, right? Now, why must you arrange in sequential order? Because orderliness reduces time waste. Does it make sense? When things are organized and in order, you will be able to systematically manage time and you look like an angel. You only added some level of strategic thinking, right? So let's go into it now. Inputs to activity sequencing. You want to sequence your job. Number 1, hold the activity list. Hold down your list because you're going to use it as an input to sequence what you're going to do, right? Don't be in a hurry. If you don't sequence it, you waste time. You start with number 1. Number 2 will hook you. You go to number 3. You come back to 2 again. Oh, come on. That is unprofessionalism. Arrange it properly. Head, neck, chest, stomach, knee, and your feet. That's the way God arranged human beings. And not the other way around. Let's quickly go. Number 2, know your product description. Product description. What are we producing? Product description influences sequence. What you will produce will determine how you will produce it. Do you understand me now? You want to produce a duplex. It is not the same way to build a bungalow. So your product will inform your process. Oh, all right, we'll get to that. So know the product. You know what and how it ought to be done. You want to make an omelette. It's not the same way to make an egg sauce. Not the same way. So if I say omelette and I see you, cutting tomato, cutting pepper, cutting everything, I'll be wondering what you want to do. I said omelette. But if I say egg sauce and I see oil, massive oil, and I see massive tomato, and I see massive this, I know that you are going to do quality egg sauce that has a lot of sauce in it. But omelette does not require all those massive things. It has to be flat. We call it omelette. If you are going to put in things like carrot or tomatoes, it should be mini. It should be minor compared to when you are trying to make. I'm not an expert at that. So if you're an expert, you can correct me. But what I'm trying to say is that an omelette is different from an egg sauce. So that's what it means. The processes are not the same. All right. Number 3, we have mandatory factors. Check out factors that are a must. Start with the mandatory. You want to build a house, the first thing is not to start raising block. From where? The first thing is what? Your foundation. Foundations are important before you start doing your lintel or whatever you want to do up there. Number 4, find out external factors, external dependencies. Anything that can affect your project from outside you is an external dependency. Those external dependencies are very, very, they can be very, very, for want of word, they can be very, very disappointing. So you need to manage those external dependencies. I'll give you an example. You are working in a project and you assign some part of the project to some so-called professionals to get you certain things that is an input to your job. And you are already at the stage of applying what they are bringing. And this human being, who told you everything, and he said, I'm coming, I'll soon be there. In the next 30 minutes, you see me. From 30 minutes, this guy came in 3 hours. Everybody was waiting because nothing happens at that stage until he comes. So what do? Schedule external dependencies on time. If you are starting by 3 p.m., tell the external guy, appear in the site or in the office by 8 a.m. Don't tell him I'm using it by 3. He will come by 6. There are so many unforeseen factors and human error that will make the guy bring it by a wrong extended time. So you need to manage. That's what we call it. We call it project management. You're managing every side to make sure everything works well. So don't tell somebody come by 3. We need by 3:30. You're joking. Even the traffic, all other unforeseen circumstances can delay him. But if you say come by 8 o'clock, no matter the delay, even if there's spiritual delay, prayer would have been done to remove the obstacle before 3 p.m. except it's a different whatever, you know. All right, so that is very important. Let's look at the final one. Discretionary dependencies. Use your discretion. Don't use discretion until you have looked at your mandatory factors. Discretionary dependency means based on your choice. Okay, I don't want a POP. I think I like PVC. It's your choice. Okay, I like a parapet. I don't want this. It's your choice. But these are people can leave it to choices. Oh, we'll build the carcass for you. Your choice. You can do the finishing on the inside. Yeah, it's good. The basic things have been done. Then, based on choices, you can continue. So you can arrange your job at the end of it based on your choice. Okay, let's look at sequencing. How do you sequence? How do you arrange your job in an order? Let me quickly run it. One, use a project network diagram. I'll show you what it means, right? Just be patient. We have two of them. Look at this, PDM and ADM. This will come in the exam. Please understand this one. You will need it even in life, mentally speaking, or if you have a big project, it can help you a lot. Or let's look at the diagram now. Look at this now. Okay, good. Here we are. We have two processes here. I will dwell on this for like 2 minutes because I want you to understand these facts. What is PDM? PDM means precedence. Look at it here. Precedence diagramming method. PDM. Precedence. To precede. All right? I mean, that's English. Okay? ADM means arrow diagramming method. PDM uses a method to arrange different activities that are multiple in nature. In case you want to embark on 17 activities in your project, use a PDM to draw arrows and connect the activities that will lead from start to finish. You are done. You already know what to do at phase 1. Phase 2, we do 4. Phase 3, we go to 3. And phase 4, we just attend to one thing and we are done. As simple as that. But if you do it phase by phase, I'll finish 1, go to 2. From 2, I will do 3. 3, I will do 16. You are going to spend 18 years on the job. You must collapse the job in tandem because you are managing time. Because some jobs can go at the same time. Except if they cannot go. I'll tell you about those ones now, right? Look at this ADM. ADM has only one activity. Okay, please write. Difference between ADM and PDM is in your manual. ADM manages many activities. Sorry, PDM manages many activities, while ADM manages only one activity. Do you see that? Now, ADM has a dummy. Look at the dummy. Because it is one activity, you must do a dummy. You know, you must do a dummy. Let me come down a little. God says marry one wife. If you're a Christian, you know, and you believe in that, sometimes you don't even know who is who. So you have to relate with dummy human beings before you meet the right person. Am I correct? Yeah, because it's one person you must live with. You must do your proper due diligence and go through a dummy process before you can get into the real process. Do you understand that? I'm talking positively now and not on the other way around. Now, so you need an ADM to talk about one activity, PDM. Now, look at these arrows. Can you see these arrows? Watch. Look at these arrows here. This is an arrow. This is another arrow. Look at this arrow. Goes from C to finish and D to finish, right? Look at these other arrows from start to A to... Look at A and B. There's an arrow that connects between A and B. These arrows you see here, especially from A to C and B to D, they are relationships. This arrow in ADM is also what? A relationship. What's the relationship between activity A and activity C? Let's come down. Look at this now. There are 4 types of relationships in activities in your job. This is important for you to know. 1, start to start. Look at it, SS. 2, finish to start. 3, start to finish. 4, finish to finish. What is SS? Start to start. Activity A can start, activity B can start. In fact, activity A to Z can be run at the same time. There could be 20 matches at the same 4 p.m. because it is the last match of the season in EPL. That's all. Everybody plays by 4 to 6. The EPL for the year is gone. It's over. So it's start to start. You don't need to waste time. One will finish. Let's wait for the second one. The result of one can influence the other. All right. The second one is finish to start. You have to finish A before you start B. Why? If A is not done, B cannot even start. Do you understand me? Because you need the output of A in order to kickstart B. You are producing crude oil and you want to produce petrol and you want to on your gen. Your gen is useless without fuel. So the generator starting must wait until the crude oil has been completely refined and petrol is available to start the gen. It is called finish to start. Number 3 is start to finish. A will start in order for B to finish. That's very funny, right? If A does not start, B cannot finish. Let me explain this one. A little tricky. Is used in construction industry. For example, lay example, right? You went to a company and they are building houses and they have land, empty land, and they're selling lands. And you're asking them, when will this land, when will this building, this estate be ready? I want to be sure you guys are going to start before I start, paying for the land. And they tell you, we're going to finish in 2 months. Sorry, in 2 years. 6 months after, they've not started one thing. 1 year later, they not even an excavation, nothing. And they are still telling you they will finish in 2 years. Oh my God, that is not sound, unacceptable. You know why? Until they start, their 2 years cannot finish. It's called start to finish. If you are making custard or akamu in local parlance of Nigerian language, and you are trying to make akamu, until you start pouring your hot water, akamu will not finish. Your custard will not be seen. It is called start to finish. All right? Then we have finish to finish. A can finish, B can finish. Let's go to the diagram. What is the relationship between A and B? Your guess is as good as mine, right? Start to start. A starts, B can start. What is the relationship between C and D? Very simple. Finish to finish. C is going to finishing point. D is going to finishing point. Stew is getting ready. Rice is getting ready. Salad is getting ready at the same time. Not that the rice will be in the dining. The stew will now wait 30 minutes to come. The salad will not take another 1 hour to come. Before the salad appears, people have eaten the rice raw without stew. That doesn't make sense. Some things must be done, finished at the same time. All right? So that is good project management. And that will be very helpful. Do you understand that? So please go through it again. If you have any questions, you can send it in the group and we'll find a way to get you more clarification. Okay? Good. Now let's go to this one. It's the same. The result of sequencing. Your result is your network diagram, which is your PDM and ADM. The second result is activity list update. You have to update your list in case if there are new things that you discovered as a result of your sequencing process, right? Let's look at the last for time management. Activity duration estimating. How do you estimate the time? Now you have sequenced your job. Good sequencing. You know what will happen in phase 1, 5 of them. Phase 2, 8 activities. Phase 3, 2 activities, and you are done. The next thing is estimate time. How long will each activity take? This is simple. This is not going to be hard at all. So let's run it. Inputs to activity duration estimating. 1, have your activity list. 2 and 3, you already know. Constraints and assumptions, know them. Keep carrying over. As you solve them, you leave them behind. As you see new constraints and assumptions, you keep holding them. Don't use them until you are sure before you can apply them. Number 4, know your resource requirement. What do you require? Then know your resource capability. What is the ability? What is the capacity of the machine or the human resource doing the job for you? Somebody tells you, how long will it take you to arrange the hall? Before 4 o'clock. Can you do it in 2 hours? You just want to say, sir, 2 hours is too much. Within 45 minutes, I'm done. And they ask you, why do you say so? Well, I have about 20 persons in the department, and everybody, I'm getting them on this job. Oh, good. And all of them are quite experienced and efficient. That is capability. 20 people, requirement. Then number 5, know your historical information before you can be able to, estimate the duration. If you have done such a job in the past, Google and find how long it took you to do the job, and that can be a good input to your present time estimate process. Let's look at the inputs. You want to estimate. Okay, we've done that before, I beg your pardon. Let's look at the tools. Number 1, analogous estimation. The word analogous means analogy. Use the time of one former similar previous project to estimate the time of the present project. Do you understand that? Just analogy. Oh, it took us 50 minutes the last time we did this job, similarly, but now we can do it at 45 minutes because we have improved in experience. Good. Number 2, use expert judgment. An expert have to help you in case you don't have this analogous estimation. Get somebody who have done it before, and they can give you leverage on their expertise. Okay? Let's look at the results. Results of estimating. You have your estimates. Oh, how long can the job be done? 45 minutes. You have your basis, your reason for the estimate. Oh, we are 20 in the department, everybody's coming on board. Oh, you are good to go, right? Yeah. Let's look at it. Final one, schedule development. How do you develop a schedule? When you are done with time estimate, have a schedule for each job. The table will be arranged between 3 p.m. to 3:15 p.m. 15 minutes is for the table arrangement. That's a schedule. A schedule is not time. A schedule is when are we starting, when are we ending. You remember in exams, if you are familiar with exams, you know those days in school when the lecturers come to the board and say, everybody, your time is 3 hours. They will draw a big S on the board and they will write START on the upper side of the S and STOP on the lower side. They will write start and stop. What does that mean? You start by 1 p.m., you end by 3 p.m. They are simply telling you your schedule is from 1 to 3. But your time estimate is what? 2 hours. So you must make a schedule. Let's quickly look at it. How do you make a schedule? 1, use the PDM and ADM. 2, use your estimates you came out with. Do you understand that? Because you want to make a schedule. Now, practical schedule. How do you make a schedule? 1, find out the resource pool description. What and what do you need for the job? You need to know your resource requirement because you have to schedule them at various times. Let me explain. You are supposed to you are supposed to decorate the hall for your clients after the seats have been arranged. You don't call the hall decorator at any time. There is a scheduled time for the decorator to do his or her job, either before you start the arrangement or after you are done. Then he or she can now do the arrangement so that it doesn't get disturbed or spoiled by the other patterns of the job. So you must know what you need in order to schedule it at the right time. Number 2, know your calendars. Your calendars are very important. Don't just do a schedule without knowing that on the 25th of December is Christmas Day and 26th of December is Boxing Day. And it was on the same day you had to schedule an important project work. You will not get your stakeholders to attend. Somebody had to schedule her wedding on a major election day and never knew that day was election day. you can, the results are better experienced than imagined. So you must look at calendar before you make a schedule. So look at your manual. You will see 2 types of calendars. You can read that one later, okay? We have project calendar, we have resource calendar. So please look at it critically and you understand better. Now let's look at the next one. Know your leads and lags. Number 4. Leads are important. Lags are important. What is lead? Lead is anything you do before you do the main activity. You need to schedule your leads before your activity begins. I will explain. Your lags are the things you must wait for in order to get completed before you can start your main activity. Does that make sense? Let me give you an example. You have a project, you need to arrange some seats, events for your guests, right? Before you start arranging, what's your lead? Ask your stakeholders what they want. Have a meeting with them. They should give you what they need, the design, any expected color. That's your leads. You don't just enter the hall and start arranging, put in your color. What? You must have a lead. You got a project to paint a house, big house, and you have to paint it for 5 days. But before you paint the house, you need to use what it calls screeding. You must screed. Why must you screed the wall? You screed the wall to make it smooth. So if you apply your paint Maybe your raising paint or your motion paint or whatever paint you want to apply, the wall will look smooth. So your painting or your screeding before you paint is called your lead. So don't just do scheduling. I will paint by 1 p.m. I'll finish by 6 p.m. What about your screeding? So find out if there's a lead before you start. Number 2, know your lags. What are lags? Waiting time. Some things you just have to wait. You mix a concrete, you want to build the house. You can't just mix it and carry it and go and pour inside the house. Oh, the concrete will unconcretize the house. So what do? Let the concrete to cake. You did a decking. You don't just finish a decking and start putting blocks on the decking. You will undeck the decking. What you should do is allow the decking to cake. Allow it to form. You have to wait until 30 days. All right? The structure should not be strong before you can continue your building and put your roof. That is how it is. So you must understand your leads and your lags. How do you do that scheduling? I'll just give you 2 things, right? 1, use mathematical analysis. I didn't say use mathematics. Use what? Mathematical analysis. For example, use a method called critical path method. It's in your manual. It's right there. Read it up later as a reference material. I'll just explain it. What is critical path method? It is a method in your project that has the longest duration. The critical path method is the method with the longest duration. The part of your project where you will spend the longest time. That is a critical path method. So if you want to have a schedule the longest part first. Do your hardest job first. Do the job that every other job depends upon first before you do the other job. Does it make sense? You want to produce soup with cow tail or cow leg. You will start boiling your cow leg 3 hours ago. If not, your soup will take 6 hours. So that is the critical part. Once your critical part is done, boom, your project is ready. Let's look at the second one. Second one is called duration compression. What's duration compression? How do you reduce the time of your project? In case a project is 5 days and the client says, please, I want it in 3 days. They have changed the date. Can you supply me the souvenir within 3 days? What do? Right. Do 2 things. 1, use crashing. 2, use fast tracking. Use crashing, use fast tracking. Now, what is crashing? Crashing means do more than one thing at the same time. Now, let's look at, so you need these 2 things to help you. You need to crash. You need to fast track. At the same time, you're doing the same thing. 5 things. People are, people are cleaning this, and that group of people are painting this, the one that are fixing the ties. That is dangerous. Fast tracking is dangerous. Crashing is better. To crash means to add more resources. To fast track means to do more than one thing at the same time. It's like you are fast forwarding your video. So that is going to be risky. So if you want to do duration compression, please, you can crash. But if you add more resources, you may need to add more financial resources, because you need to pay more people to get the work done, or you need to use more machine to produce faster. Of course, we call it express in production. You've heard that word before. So that will help you to reduce your project time. Finally, you need to have your project schedule. At this juncture, your project time management is set. You can make your schedule like a timetable. You can make a schedule like a histogram. You can make a schedule like a bar chart. You can just have a simple plan to know when this, when that, how this, what this, and you are good to go. So your project schedule must be produced because your stakeholders are in expectation of a project that will be, concluded before the deadline. All right. So assignments. All right. Assignment. This is very important. Now let's take an assignment. Let's take an assignment. Now quickly. Now look at this now. First assignment, write down the differences between the ADM and the PDM. Look at it here, it's in your manual. What are the three differences between an ADM and a PDM? You must know the differences so that you can be able to utilize it, going forward. Okay? All right, at this juncture, I think we're going to be stopping here. Thank you. I'll see you in the next class, and enjoy the rest of your time.